Recording? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Joseph. Hi everybody. So good. Hi, how are you? Let's see this morning. All right, we are going to get started. So I don't know if you saw my email this morning. I said that this is our last class of the semester. I know, right? It's like so quick. But because next week is Purim, and then we have a JLI trip in Israel, and it's getting ready for Pesach, for Passover. So we're going to start our third and final semester for this year after Passover. We'll send out an email with all the information. But we did pretty good. So let's see what we can accomplish today. So we are going to start off as we do every single week. What's the first thing a Jew does when he wakes up in the morning? Says the Moda'ani. Let's go ahead and say it together. Moda'ani lefanecha melechai v'kayam shehechezarta b'nishmasi v'chem laraba emunasecha. And what do we do right after we say Moda'ani? We wash our hands. How do we do it? How do we do it? Right, left, right, left, right, left. When we wash for bread, it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So don't confuse the two. In the morning, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we say the blessing of Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Kedishanu B'mitzvosav V'tzivanu Al Netilat Yadayim. And we go through the different prayers, and the main prayer that we say every single day is the Shema, which can be found on page 20. And when we are going to say Shema, we cover our eyes and we say it twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. And this is an opportunity for you to think, to connect with Hashem, to meditate on anything that's going on in your life. I always tell my children when they go, what's that noise? Finishing up with a machine. Oh, it's a machine. Oh, okay. I was like, it sounds like something's rolling. I always tell my children, think about what you want to tell Hashem tonight. Is there anything you want to say sorry for? It's the first question I ask. Is there anything, is there anything you want to say? Not guilt, just it's an opportunity to teach a child self-reflection. Is there something you want to say sorry for? Is there something, did you feel bad about beating up your brother 10 seconds ago? Like, I just want to start the process. Or is there something you want to thank Hashem for? Is there something that you want to tell Hashem? So I tell that to my children, but I tell it to myself as well. When we say Shema, think about that. So let's raise our right hand. Let's cover our eyes in concentration. And let's begin. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And now we whisper. This is the prayer of the angels. Thank you. Baruch Shem Kevod Achoso Li'alam Va'ed. And we say together, V'yahavta es Adonai Elohecha V'chal levavecha Uvechal nafshecha, uvechal miyodecha, vehayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavecha hayom, al livavecha, v'shinantam livanecha, v'dibarta bam b'sheftecha b'veisecha, uvelechtecha v'aderech, uveshachbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam lios al yadecha, והיו לטוטפות בעיניך, וכספתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך. And so that's as far as our prayers are concerned. Moving on, we go to our blessings. Did we say a blessing on today we didn't have any bagels. So, no, today we have pasta. What is the bracha that we make on pasta? What is pasta made from? Well, from wheat. So it's the bracha of, who remembers the bracha? Anybody could look at the section of blessings where we have section, let's see, I think there's a chart of all the blessings. What blessing do we say on mizonot? Very good. We're on page number 30. So today we didn't wash. We said we should have said, and I'm sure you all said it, the bracha of mizonos. That is before eating cakes, cookies, pasta, or anything. So let's say the bracha on page 30 together. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Borei Minei Mizonot. Amen. Okay, so now we are moving on to our review of 12 months of the year. What month are we in? We're in the month of Adar. Misha Nichnas Adar, Marbin B'Simcha. Now, if I really treated you like Hebrew school for kids, then I would be teaching you this really fun song that I taught the kids this Wednesday, which is Misha Nichnas Adar, Marbin B'Simcha. It's a happy month. Those that enter into the month of Adar, it's a time of joy. So let's review on page 99 the 12 months of the year. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Teves, Shvat, good. Adar, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, and Elul. These are the 12 months of the year. Now, who still has their sheets from last week of the 12 Pesukim? Do you still have the 12 Pesukim? Yes, you have it in your book. We also have it, not the English part of the song, but we do have it. And we spoke about how these 12 verses are the verses that if you know these 12 verses, you know fundamental concepts in Judaism. We have the verse of Torah. We have the verse of Shema. And we are going to get it on, and we are going to start. Here we go. Hold on. All right. Everybody have it? Torah, Torah, Tziva, Tziva, Lanu Moshe, a gift from Hashem to you. Torah, Tziva, Lanu Moshe, Morasha, Kihilas Yaakov, Shema. Number 2, Elokeinu Hashem, Echad, Hashem is one. Number 3, here we go. V'chol v'dar chayav adam l'rois esatzmai kilu yatsa min Mitzrayim. In every generation, a person must believe that Hashem will take us out of exile speedily. 4. Yesh lahem chelek li'olam haba shenemar v'yamech kulam tzadikim. Le'olam yirshu aretz neitzer mata'ai ma'aseh yadai lihitzba'er. Every Jew has a place in the world to come. Every Jew has a place, yes, everyone. 5. Ki karo le'lecha hadavar me'od beficha u'belvavcha la'asosoi. It's close to you, it's close to me. Through thought, speech, and deed, we can do what is right, and we will succeed. 6. Hashem nitzav alav u'melaychal haaretz kivaydai u'mabit alav u'vaychen kayayis v'alev im avdei. Do you need one? Let me get one. Hashem is everywhere. Hashem sees and hears. Hashem knows what's inside our heart. You need one? I'm getting more. What we do decide. 7. Freddie? Guys, could you call Freddie? Freddie. Es Hashemayim v'yesa. We're getting more. In the beginning, Hashem created. Is that an X one? Heavens and the earth. 8. Here we go. Vishinantam leva. You have more. Vidivarta. Thank you. There. Abby? Uvelecht. You got it. Uveshach becha. ukumecha. Our children, generation, let's pass on to them the Torah of Hashem. Number 9. Gaiti v'lai matzasi, ya gaiti v'lai matzasi al tamin. It's 2 separate ones, so she doesn't have 9. Ooh, no, she doesn't have 9. It's 2 pages. Gaiti umatzasi al tamin, ya gaiti umatzasi tamin. If you work hard, you will succeed. If you try your best, you will have success. Try and succeed. Try and try, you will achieve. Do your very best. You will have success. 10. Kamaicha. That's back to back. Ze Akiva Aimer Ze Klal Gadol B'Torah. Love another like it's you. Love every single Jew. Says Rabbi Akiva. It's the basis. 11. Kala Adam V'Sach V'Spriya Isabu Vriya Kala Ilamais El Yainim V'Sach Tainim Li Islai Dirazu V'Sach Tainim. This whole world was created for Hashem to have a home, and that is why He made it. Torah and mitzvahs is what we have to do. That is why Hashem created me and you. Last one. Yismach Yisroel B'Yisav Perush Shekol Mishehu Izera Yisroel Yesh Lismayach B'Simchas Hashem Asher Sas V'Sameach B'Dirasai B'Sach Tainim. Let us serve Hashem with happiness and joy. Each and every Jewish girl and boy. These 12 Pesukim are our guide. How to serve Hashem with pride. Good job. It's a good feeling when you're done, no? But come on, you just said 12 Jewish verses. Seriously, if you know this by heart, at the end of this year, because so many of you, by the way, came in here, there was like 1 or 2 of you that knew Moda'ani by heart. Now, most of you say Moda'ani without thinking. Interesting. Or the blessing of the Al Natil, or the Shema. First time I said Shema, there was maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people that were timid. Now, people are starting to get comfortable with that paragraph, that hard paragraph, and now everyone's like, right? Becoming more comfortable. The more comfortable, that's why I do this. What is it? Oh, Gaiti. But the more you say these words, there's an impact. Don't underestimate just learning. A lot of times we learn, but we don't cement it into our psyche, into our being. By saying the words, you're going to start doing your dishes today. You're going to start humming. And I'm serving Hashem with pride. It becomes a part of you. That's why it's important to say the words, to make it a part of you, for it to be what it is. So, we are moving on today. We last week spoke about Shabbos. We are in grade number 4, because we did 3, we did 5, and now we're back in 4. And we spoke about mitzvahs. That was in grade number 4. We talked about mitzvahs. So we spoke about the idea that what is a mitzvah? A mitzvah connects you to Hashem. We said that the word mitzvah comes from the Hebrew word tzavtza, which means connection. Every mitzvah that you do is a connection point on its own. We spoke about the value and the beauty of the mitzvah of Shabbos. So this week, today, we're going to start talking about another mitzvah, the mitzvah of kosher. But before we go to the mitzvah of kosher, I want to do a quick reminder. Do you remember last week I spoke to you about the 3 types of mitzvahs? What were the 3 types of mitzvahs? The first type is called mishpatim. What's mishpatim? Mitzvahs that we understand. Excellent. Mitzvahs that we understand. Don't steal, don't kill, etc. The second type of mitzvahs are called, that's the third, edis, which is witness, like Shabbos falls under that category. It's a mitzvah of witness. It's a mitzvah that we remember something that happened. What do we remember through the mitzvah of Shabbos? Just like Hashem created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh, so too, every single solitary week, on the 6 days of the week we work, and the seventh day we rest. So that's a mitzvah of witnessing. And then the third type of mitzvah, like you correctly said, is the mitzvah called chukim, or a chok. Can you say that with me? Chok. Chok. A chok, or chukim for plural, is a mitzvah that is something that we do not understand. And very rowdy class today. You know, Freddie, since we're done, I'm just going to grab it. Anybody who doesn't have the psukim and would like to have it folded in their books, just come up to me at the end of class and there's a whole stack. Thank you, Freddie. All right. All right. So the mitzvah of chukim, right? The mitzvah of chukim is mitzvahs that we don't understand. So we spoke about that there's very few mitzvahs that fall under that category. One of the mitzvahs, I think you were the one who said it last week, was shatnez, not mixing wool and linen. The mitzvah of mikvah, the concepts of purity are also, right? Things that we don't understand. And actually the mitzvah of kosher, which we're going to learn about today, is also part of the third type of mitzvahs that we don't understand. And we spoke about the idea that the reason we have these types of mitzvahs is that each one connects us in a different way. So the example, supposed to say amen, is in a relationship, we do things that are easy, that are understandable. And then there are things that we do that are beyond our understanding. Like I told you, like the husband who picks up his dirty socks from the floor. He may not see the value in that, but he does it because it's important to his wife. Sometimes when you're in a relationship, you do things beyond your understanding because you love the person and you want to be in this relationship. So you're going to do things even if you don't understand them. So there are mitzvahs that we do that we don't understand. That doesn't mean that there's no reason for it. There's a reason for it, but we don't do the mitzvah because of that reason. We do the mitzvah because Hashem said to do it. And there's something very valuable in general when we do something just because Hashem said to do it. It elevates our relationship with Hashem to a whole new way. So let's talk for a minute about kosher. Most people most Jews have heard about kosher. Am I right? When's the first time you heard about kosher? Did you grow up with it? I'll pick on you, Svetlana. When's the first time you heard kosher? Or did you not?
Not in my childhood. First time when I came to America and started to learn about Judaism.
Okay, so you learned it as an adult. Okay, Madeline, what about you? You grew up with it. Did someone keep kosher in your family? Did your mother keep kosher? Okay. Okay, Tzivia, how about you? When you were in your teens. I think there's just a lot of noise coming on over here. Excuse me. Suzanne, when did you hear about kosher?
I heard that saying something's not kosher about it.
Oh, so you heard it in the term, this doesn't sound kosher. Like something's not kosher about it. Rita, how about you? Did you hear about it growing up? You didn't. You never heard the word. Really? You heard it when you were older. Interesting. How about you, Paula? You never heard the word. Explained what it was. Interesting. Paulette, what were you going to share?
I was going to say, my mother was, I knew kosher growing up.
I didn't hear. Your mother what?
Was not sure. I knew kosher growing up. She bought kosher food. She always bought from a kosher baker. She said, she just
How come?
I was like 5 years old. I mean, I knew the difference between kosher
Right.
and non-kosher.
Right. Well, it depends also. You grew up where? Right. So you know what I'm saying? So when you're growing up in Queens, you're going to have heard of it. You know what I mean? It depends. It's also something that's just like familiar lingo. So who said, Suzanne, you said you heard that kosher was like when somebody says something doesn't sound kosher. Do you know what the word kosher means? The word kosher means fit. 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 It's fit. Um, the the word kosher is actually used, so people use that terminology a lot, like, this doesn't sound kosher. People use the terminology kosher for kosher food in that context. Do you know that when a woman immerses in a mikveh and the mikveh attendant wants to ensure that the immersion is fit, is proper, when she comes out, she says kosher. That's her signal that her immersion was proper. So the word kosher is actually used in different contexts to show that something is kosher, something is straight, something is fit, something's according to, is not clean. A lot of kosher kitchens in Brooklyn that are not clean, I promise you. So kosher is not necessarily clean, even though a lot of kosher food generally is cleaner. And we're going to discuss why, but kosher does not mean clean. That is a big misconception out there. So so I just want to take a second to
We were told that it meant pure.
Pure. Okay. Just try to get here. Sorry. Um, so I want to talk for just a second about kosher to understand that every, today they're coming out like my son Levi asked me yesterday. There's like a vegan kosher place up in Sarasota. So he's like, yeah, you want to go there, Ma? It sounds so. He was like afraid of it. I'm like, Levi, come on, it's just. So he asked me an interesting question. He said, why do you think people are vegan today? Is it because of animal cruelty or is it because of health? So I said, years ago when I was younger, I think it was much more connected to animal cruelty. That was like much more of a movement. But today, there's so many health benefits that people know about more that they've adopted more of this type of lifestyle. So so we were having this conversation how everybody knows. I know I asked them 3 times to leave. Yeah, that's what I was texting. I texted somebody, please tell those people to leave. Thank you, Alex. Um, Kosher is something that, um, excuse me. So what I was saying about vegan is that like everyone knows today, maybe it was less 30 years ago, but everyone knew, I mean, people always knew that food affects you, but I think as the years go on, there's much more studies coming out how the food we eat very much affects our health. I mean, today you can't get away with that, right? You are what you eat. You are a reflection. Obviously, there's a lot more that constitutes a person. Their emotions have a very big effect on them. But I'm talking about from a food element, food very much affects the way a person feels, right? Everybody knows there's certain foods you eat, you feel a certain way after. Food affects, it becomes behavior. So many studies today, food coloring with children. And I mean, it's not a diet class on the physical element, but we know that physically, everything that we eat affects us. So too spiritually. Everything that we put into our mouth, we know that everything in the world has a physical and a spiritual element to it. Everything that that is put into our bodies not only affects our body, it affects our soul. We know that we live in a world where we don't see Hashem openly. We were just talking about this today in our book club, how Hashem is masked. We don't see Hashem when we walk down. We don't feel Hashem. Sometimes we feel it more, sometimes we feel it less. We were discussing today how on Yom Kippur, a Jew will feel Hashem more because of his levels of his soul that are exposed on Yom Kippur. But the soul is deep inside our bodies. And our souls cry out all the time. It wants to be heard, it wants to be nourished. And many times we take precautions to nourish our bodies, but we don't take the precautions to nourish our soul. And part of a person feeling in true alignment with who they are as a person is that their body and their soul feel in alignment. When a person eats kosher, it actually allows them to have more of a sensitivity to spirituality. The kosher food allows the person to feel sensitive to their soul. It's like, when, I'm trying to think of a good example. It's like, a silly example, but it's the first thing I thought of. Like, like when, your kids grow up and they're out of the house and it's quiet. And then kids come into your house and you're like, it's so noisy, right? Because you're not used to the noise, right? If you ask a mother of children, she doesn't even hear the noise. Why? Because she's used to it. It's happening every day. And I'm sure that it's just the first example I thought of. But like, no, not because it's her kids, because it's because you don't even realize just because you live with it every day. And that example could be applied to anything really, right? Like anything that you're used to, you become less sensitive to.
For example, in that case, if the grandmother comes to take care of the kids that day, she still loves her kids, but she notices by surprise the quiet.
Yes, that is a good example. But that is true. That is the idea, that you have a certain sensitivity, and then there are certain things that desensitize you, for positive or for negative. We want our souls to be sensitive to spirituality. We don't want our souls to become so desensitized that it doesn't feel spirituality, it doesn't feel godliness. I'm trying to think of another better example in the spirit of spirituality. Like when you see, let's say, something like modest dress. I'll just give you an example. Let's say you come to shul, right? People are dressed respectfully for a synagogue. And then let's say, like, you walk into a bar and everyone's dressed not that way. Let's say you follow. You'll have more of like not a shock, but more of like a sensitivity to it because you just came from a place where everybody was dressed one way, and then you'll notice it. But if you spend your whole time in one environment or the other, you will lose that sensitivity because of that lack of contrast.
I had that feeling in New York when I went to Crown Heights for the first time, and then I went to Times Square, and I was like,
right, you develop a certain sensitivity just for your environment, which makes sense. We want to be sensitive to spirituality. We want to feel. You want to be able to be walking on the street or being at a place where you feel your neshama. Hashem tells us when we eat kosher, we develop that sensitivity. It's not something I can touch. It's not something I can quantify, but it's something that gives a certain sensitivity to your soul. And when you start to eat kosher, the differences are very subtle. So that is, again, there's no official reason for kosher. We don't eat kosher so that our souls are more sensitive, but it's important to understand what it does to the soul. Yes.
Is it the fact of eating kosher, or is it the mental activity of thinking this is kosher, I can eat it, this is not?
No, it's the fact of eating kosher. It's not the intention behind it. Intention in general is a wonderful thing for life. Anything you do with more intention, your experience is more conscious, more mindful. But we know that, like, for example, if you help your neighbor, whether you are consciously saying, I am going to help my neighbor now, and I'm going to engage in the act of kindness, or you just go and help your neighbor, the neighbor doesn't know the difference. It's the action that counts. Judaism very much focuses on the action. You look like you have a question.
Um, yeah, actually, I think you sort of already answered that. I was thinking
Okay.
with the example of the vegetarianism or the veganism,
Mm-hmm.
like to the extent that a vegetarian or a vegan is kosher anyway without a particular intention, but is it the same mitzvah, the same credit,
Yes.
the same benefit?
Yes. Good comparison. Yeah. So what is kosher? Kosher is officially a special diet for Jewish people, right? And we know that kosher food is the best food for our soul. So we're going to start with kosher meat, okay? In order for an animal to be kosher, it has to be healthy with the following signs. Does anyone know offhand? It has to have split hooves and it has to chew its cud. Very good. Now, and it has to be a healthy animal. What does it mean to chew its cud? Are you familiar with what that means? It chews its cud, it swallows it, and it brings it back up. There are many animals, like a cow or
Actually, giraffes are kosher.
giraffes are kosher. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Any animal that chews its cud, it chews it, goes back down, and it comes back up. That's what chewing its cud means. And
cud means the stuff that it began to eat.
Yeah.
It's like you have two stomachs
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, it comes up and it goes back down. Split hooves is that the hooves are split in it, like a horse, for example. A camel has split hooves. No, I think a camel. There are 4 animals that have one but not the other. A camel has, I think it has split hooves, but it doesn't chew its cud. A pig is the only one that has split hooves but doesn't chew its cud. So I think the camel chews its cud actually. Um, a rabbit, here has that. And what's the 4th animal? I forgot. There's 4 animals that have one and not the other. Okay, so that's as far as to start. We're only focusing right now on animals. Yosef, is there a way to make it bigger? I'm getting old. I can't see. Okay, now how about the slaughtering of kosher animal of an animal? So in other words, if you have an animal, you're not allowed to hunt it down. If you hunting is against Torah. You're not allowed to hunt an animal for sure for pleasure, but even when it comes to eating, you're not allowed to just hunt and say, okay, it's a kosher animal, we're good to go. There's a specific way that we slaughter it, and in Hebrew, you know what the word is? It's called. Thank you. That's better.
Yeah, just stop playing right now. You're doing it.
Okay, that's fine.
Play when you're ready.
I don't want to. Can I just go out? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So there's a special way that we actually slaughter the animals. The way that animals are slaughtered is the most sensitive and painless way in any slaughtering house you'll find. There's very specific ways that the location of where the animal is slaughtered, the type of knife, the speed is a big one, but also the type of knife, the blade has to be super, super, super sharp. That's why, remember I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago about a mohel, that you want to choose someone who has yira shamayim, about fear of heaven. Same thing when it comes to slaughtering. Different, it's called in Hebrew a sheichet. Different peoples that slaughter have the intention that they have, and the way they sharpen their blades and everything all goes into this this action and affects the kosher of the meat that is coming out of it. So it's someone who has to be Torah trained according to all the halachas, all the laws that the Torah tells us animal has to be slaughtered. There's also something called glatt kosher. So wait, what is? Someone asked me this last week. What is glatt kosher? Does anyone know what glatt means? Have you heard of glatt kosher? So you say it's more kosher. So glatt kosher is actually, it means that after the word glatt actually means smooth. That after the animal is slaughtered, the lungs are carefully inspected to make sure that it was perfectly healthy. That's where the term glatt kosher comes. Now, because a Jew is not allowed to eat blood after the animal is slaughtered, the meat is soaked, salted, and then rinsed. That is the process that happens. So that's why this whole idea of blood libels that took place were so, not only did they not make sense that a Jew would murder a child, but also the idea of eating blood is against Torah. We know that even when we have like eggs, we have to check our eggs for blood. Eating blood is against the Torah. So all the blood is extracted through salting, as soaking and soaking and salting, and then the proper certification is put on the package. When you go to a store and you see kosher, there's different types of labels, there's different types of seals. Each one represents another one. There are certain ones that certain people trust more than others, and it's important to familiarize yourself with the different types of what's called in Hebrew hechsherim. A hechsher is a stamp of approval. So, for example, there are certain people that will only eat certain types of meats, that not certain types of meat, but certain hechsher, certain stamps of certifications that they know that they can trust. It comes, of course, it has to be approved by the rabbis that do it. But like, it's like, like I'm trying to think of another example, like something that like certain brands that you trust, right? Certain brands have certain. No, you trust. No, you trust. No, it's a rabbi brand, but no, a certain brand. Like for example, OK, the O and the K in the middle. That's not for meat. I'm just saying that the brand OK or the OU is a very reliable hechsher. Anything that's OU, anything that has an OU, you know that it's it's kosher. It's like if certain certifications like with gluten free or vegan, they have like, or it has like OV, or I don't know, organic. Thank you, organic. Certain ones. If it says certain things, you know that this is trustworthy. So the same thing when it comes to kosher. Okay, so that's as far as meat is concerned. Milk needs to be from a kosher animal, and the milking. Hold on a second. Um, the the milking first of all has to be from a kosher animal, so it can be from a goat, from a cow. Yeah, you can't obviously have horses or pig's milk or anything like that. So the animal itself has to be kosher. And then there's an idea out there that the milk has to be supervised by a Jew. This is the idea that there used to be times where people can trick, that they say that it was milked from a kosher animal, but especially years ago when there were, I mean, you never know what exists in any generation, but especially years ago when there was a lack of trust with, you know, for the guidance for where milk would come, where any foods would come from. So the idea of it being supervised by a Jew was something that was instituted called Chalav Yisrael. Ever heard of the term Chalav Yisrael? Chalav Yisrael means that the milk was milked by a Jew, and that is a certain stringency that not everybody keeps, because at the end of the day, if you milked the milk and it wasn't supervised by a Jew, the milk is still kosher. But it's a next level of, it's like shmur matzah, it's like a certain, it's like the net, it doesn't make it not kosher, but it's like a higher level within kosher itself. That's why something that has an OUD means that it's not Chalav Yisrael. So for example, if you have on a chocolate bar and it says OUD, that means that it's not Chalav Yisrael. It means that in this particular case, the milk was not supervised by a Jew. Is it kosher? Yes, but I'm just showing to you all the different levels within kosher. Yeah. So that's what OUD means. Unless it says on it Chalav Yisrael, it'll say on it written in English or in Hebrew. So any kosher products that come from a kosher animal is kosher. Excuse me, any dairy products. Milk and meat, okay, they cannot be mixed. It's another law in kosher. Milk and meat cannot be mixed. You cannot have milk with chicken or meat or any dairy products, cheeseburgers, type of stuff. Not not kosher. When you have meat, you need to wait 6 hours until you have milk. When you eat milk, you only have to wait 1 hour till you eat meat. So the conversation on Shabbos is always, from my kids, should I have cholent so I can have pizza tonight? You know, because on Saturday night when we have Abdallah, we watch a video together and it's like family time. A mishagas, they want to eat pizza on Saturday night. So there's a conversation, a whole machlokes, a whole debate. And they look at the clock and they say it's 3 o'clock. It's a winter Shabbos. Shabbos comes out early, 6 o'clock. So I'm not going to have pizza tonight. Is the cholent worth it? How's the cholent? So there's a conversation. How good is the cholent? I eat the cholent every week. I like cholent. I say, for me, I can wait a little bit. I don't have to eat pizza Saturday night. But this is in a Jewish home. This is the conversation every Shabbos afternoon. Is it worth the cholent? Because you can't have milk for 6 hours after eating meat. Utensils have to be separate. That's what a kosher kitchen is. That you don't use the same dishes or pots and pans for meat and dairy. So a typical kosher kitchen has a set of dairy pots and a set of meat pots. What is the word parav? What does the word parav mean? Parav means it's kosher. It's not milk and it's not meat. So you can, for example, eggs are parav. Fruits and vegetables are parav. You can have parav with milk and parav with meat. Eggs also. You can have eggs with your hamburger or eggs with your cheese. It's a parav thing. But however, if you, I'm sorry?
Eggs with your chicken?
Yeah. Why not?
It's a loaded question.
Anyways, when mix now, if you mix your parav with your meat, right? Like you have a salad on your table, and let's say I'm serving dinner and I make a salad. So I make a salad. I put a spoon in, and we're sitting. It's in the meat bowl, right? So it's still parav, but it's in because I have separate bowls for milk and meat. So I have salad bowls that are meat and salad bowls but it's parav. And then we're eating meatballs and spaghetti. So, this kid takes and that kid takes, and it's freilich at the table. You cannot take that salad and eat it with milk because it's already been mixed with the meat meal. So generally, parav on its own is okay to go with milk or meat, but not once it's been used with either meal. Yes?
Dishwashing. If you have a dishwashing
Separate.
machine, you have to.
Yeah, because you have to have two dishwashers. No, two dishwashers. Very good. Because the heat is what absorbs, the heat absorbs the foods into it's actually, a dishwasher is very complicated. A dishwasher is one of the only things that you cannot kosher. We're going to talk about how do you kosher your kitchen. If you have a not kosher kitchen, can you kosher it? The only thing that you can't kosher is a dishwasher. And I'll explain to you soon why. That's an excellent question. So these are examples: water, rice, juice, right? These are all things that are parav. Insects, no insects are kosher. So yeah. Now, why? There's in like certain countries like Vietnam, insects. All insects are not kosher. There's places that let me finish the thought. Insects are not kosher. I know that there are some countries where it's like a delicacy and whatever it is. Every vegetable that any leafy vegetable or lettuce must be checked. In fact, the halacha is, if you really want to know, it has to be by someone over bar and bas mitzvah. It has to be by someone who's over bar and bat mitzvah. So the lettuce can be washed, but every piece of lettuce that you have has to be checked. The boxes that say triple washed and checked, those boxes, you just have to check a few leaves and the box is okay. But if you're buying just like a raw bunch from the package, it has to be checked. When it comes to fish needs to have fins and scales. There's no shechting, no slaughtering that is required. Examples of kosher fish are salmon, tuna, Examples of not kosher fish are shark, shrimp, lobster. So the halacha, the law is that it has to have fins and scales to be considered a kosher fish. Yes.
Swordfish, some swordfish is kosher, some is not
I don't know swordfish that is kosher, but it could be. It's possible if it has the fins and scales. Yeah, yeah. You know, it's like you're talking, like we were talking before about sensitivity. Like someone who never ate not kosher in their life, when they see something not kosher, it repels them. Why? They're so holy. It's because they have a sensitivity to it. So that's what kosher does. It gives us, on a spiritual level, a sensitivity to spirituality. So that was like another example you just reminded me of. When it comes to birds, the Torah tells us which birds are not kosher. Birds require the same shechita as meat, the same slaughtering, and whatever those laws are. An example of a kosher bird is chicken, turkey, ducks. An example of a not kosher bird is hawks, vultures, and eagles. Okay.
What is
Yeah.
the rule
For
for birds?
it's stated in the Torah which are kosher and which are not.
But there are some birds that we come across that won't be listed either way. How do we know?
So the it's actually very interesting what this concept of birds is. The Torah lists a very long list, and if no, really, it's written. It's an interesting question, and if the bird is not the listing is the ones that are not kosher. So if the listing is if it's not listed in the ones that are not kosher, it is kosher. But from my understanding, there's very few birds that have come up recently that have been like, oh, this is a kosher bird. It's a very explicit list. So that's interesting. Well, that's separate. A lot of you're bringing up a very interesting point. A lot of kosher animals and birds in general, you'll notice, are non-predator animals. Non, yeah, or non. They're not predators. Most of them are. I think it's called herbivorous, right? Not carnivorous. Like what? They eat vegetation. They don't eat other animals. So which also shows the type of nature that you're absorbing into your body, right? The type of personality, so to speak, is not a aggressive personality. It's a tamer personality, and that is absorbed into the bloodstream and into the psyche of the person. Sorry, you had a question?
Yes. How do you slaughter a big animal like this?
So I'm not a shochet. I've never seen it, and I actually don't think I will. Definitely not on my bucket list of things to do. But there are if you'd like, I could send you like a link of how exactly it's done. The believe it or not, a cow is a lot easier to slaughter than a giraffe. Do you know that a giraffe is kosher? Do you know why we don't eat giraffe? No, they're too hard to catch. And more than being hard to catch, they're too hard to slaughter because their neck is no. It's actually. Do you know that the giraffe is stronger than a lion? This giraffe is stronger than a lion. So actually, the strength of the giraffe. If you try slaughtering a giraffe, you don't want to get involved. That is one of the main reasons, actually. Yes. No, no, that is against Torah. Yes, that is yes, yes. That is against Torah. It causes more pain to the animal. Torah kosher is the most painless thing that you can do to an animal. Yes.
Are you saying that one effect of following all the kosher slaughtering practice is that it is the most painless?
Yes.
Or is there a commandment that of the available methods that we must choose the most painless?
No. It's the most painless, and it's not only do we do this because Hashem said, but it also shows us the value that Hashem teaches us not to cause pain, to cause the least pain to an animal. Yes.
When you were traveling and manna came, it was kosher?
It wasn't. It was a substance that wasn't meat. It wasn't milk. It wasn't anything. It was some. It was manna. Of course, it was kosher. It was godly. That was easy. That was easy. I also want to. It was parv. I also want to say that. I just want to say in connection to like animals and kindness, and this is really a broader conversation, but I think it's a value. Is that Hashem created the world? Kabbalah teaches us Hashem created the world in 4 levels. The inanimate, daimim tzameach chai medaber. Daimim is the inanimate, like rocks. The animate is like the daimim tzameach, the things that grow, are like the vegetation. Daimim tzameach chai are the animals, and medaber, the speaker, is known as the person. Hashem created the world in this way that every level naturally wants to be elevated to the next level. That's why animals eat vegetation and people eat animals and everything under it. Because it's when it talks about like animal cruelty and everything, like we're talking about cruelty to the animals. I know this might seem like a hard concept to understand, but an animal actually, spiritually, wants to be eaten. Not every animal, but when an animal is slaughtered in the ultimate way possible, in the way the Torah commands us to, the animal actually is happy to reach its potential. No, it's a hard concept to understand, but if you recognize the way Hashem created the levels within the world, when things are done in its optimum way, it's exactly the way it's meant to be. I just wanted to throw that out to you, and I can discuss it more in a little bit. Let's talk about checking eggs. I'll address that concept in a little bit. For a restaurant to be kosher, it must have a reliable kosher certification. So you cannot walk into a restaurant that just says on it kosher. You know, like in Sam's Club or Costco, it just says kosher hot dogs. I always wondered what that was. Kosher hot dogs. Who said it's kosher? They wanted to sign kosher, but they're not kosher. What? Yeah, but people I'm just saying, what is it? How can you trust that something is kosher to the highest specification? It has to have, number one, a certain certification. And by the way, every restaurant that you go to, a kosher restaurant, has something called in Hebrew a mashgiach. You heard of a mashgiach? Mashgiach in English means somebody who watches. Somebody who stands in the kitchen and their sole job is to observe what's going on. The eggs are being cracked properly and there's no blood spots. The lettuce is being checked properly. Everything's being done according to Jewish law. I remember as a child when I used to go out to eat with my grandfather, every time we went to the restaurant and the waiter would come, he'd be like, "Can I see the mashgiach?" I'd be like, "Oh, he's easy." But he'd make friends, and then they would say sometimes the mashgiach would come, and he was very respectful. My grandfather, he was well dressed with a tie, shake his hand, he would introduce himself, he'd find out his family history, and he would leave. He goes, "Okay, we could eat here." Most people don't do that, but that was something I remember as a child. If it was a new place or something he hadn't heard of, he wanted to meet the mashgiach. He wanted to make sure, I know what's going on in the kitchen. It's so funny. It's a memory that I have as a child. I only thought about it recently. But the mashgiach is, when you know who the mashgiach of the restaurant is, you trust the place more. But a certification, not every restaurant will get different certifications. You have to you should find out who is giving that certification. Is that certification trustworthy? Okay. So also, by the way, the same thing when it comes to buying kosher, right? So fruits, vegetables, all kosher, anything that's natural. Anything that's been processed or prepared, right? When you go into Publix and you have aisles and aisles of food, how do you know if the food is kosher? So if it was, it's very simple. You just look on the package. There are certain kosher symbols that are reliable and certain ones that are not, like the OU, the OK. You can, everything in your cabinet, you may or may not be keeping kosher. You just have to look at the packaging. Today's day and age, keeping kosher is so easy. It really is. Today, also down here, like we have Kosher Caddy delivers kosher meat to your door. They sell. I mean, there's so many kosher alternatives, fruits and vegetables. It's like I even myself, when I moved here 18 years ago to today, I see a difference in the kosher. I used to have to bring everything in. Today, there's so much access. Walmart, Publix, Winn-Dixie, they sell. Yes, Trader Joe's has kosher meat. There's so much availability today to keep kosher. It's just what's it called? It's yeah, no, it's not only that, it's also just want to see the availability today to keep kosher. It's like it's really a no-brainer. A person can't say today, oh, keeping kosher is just so hard. It's not so hard. It's a process, it's a conscious decision, but it's not so hard. Also, I want to talk about for a second about koshering. If you have a kitchen that's officially not kosher, it's not hard to kosher a kitchen. Rabbi has done it for countless of people here in the area, and if you would like to have your kitchen koshered, just contact your local rabbi and he will do it for you. But he has done it for countless people. And just the basic law with koshering a kitchen is that you kosher it the way it became unkosher. So there are certain things that you boil hot water, and that koshers like the pots, the pans, the utensils, the counters, like we kosher for Pesach. And then there are certain, like an oven, you have to just increase it to a certain heat level. So like it's actually it's a couple hours and your kitchen is kosher. The only addition that one would have to do is get separate, pots for milk and meat. But for example, a stove top can be used for milk and meat. It's not ideal, but before I moved into my new home, I had one stove top for 15 years. You just put the milk pots on, the meat pots on. It's not convenient, but it's not like it can't be done. So keeping kosher is definitely way simpler than it ever was today. The access that we have is crazy. It's like easy. And it's probably one of the most beautiful ways that you can elevate your home to a place where, because food is such a big part of life. Like a person doesn't eat for a couple hours, they feel it. It nourishes us. Can you imagine if there's one thing in your life, just one thing in your life that you do often that was done in the most optimal way possible? And by the way, you can start slow. It doesn't have to be overnight that a person keeps kosher. You can start by choose anything. It could be maybe I'm going to start kosher at home, but not when I eat out. If you're not ready to give, especially I will say that down here not having kosher restaurants is definitely a challenge, especially if you're a person that likes to go out to eat a lot. But maybe that's not something you start with right away. I'm going to keep kosher at home, or I'm going to only buy kosher meat, or maybe I'm not going to bring in non-kosher fish. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, but every small step that we do creates a certain level of sensitivity within our bodies, within our souls, and it can only do good for us as people. So I know that there might be some more questions. Officially, I'm going to end class. I will see you all. I mean, I'm sure I'll see you on Tuesday on Purim. I hope you're all coming. This is like you learned about Purim, so you can't ditch me now. Thank you. So yes. So we're gonna. I hope you'll all be here Purim. I'm also encouraging you that if you haven't participated with the Purim baskets, it's a big mitzvah that we do on Purim. Be involved. Get into the energy of the holiday. Like I always tell you, the holiday has a special energy that is released into the world. It's a wonderful holiday. We'll be celebrating here at Chabad on Tuesday at 4:30. And I will see you all within the next, I'm not saying goodbye, but I will see you next week. But we will resume our Hebrew school after Passover. So, yes, you are welcome.